course, dwarf form. So that's ideally suited for a small garden. It has the same scent, same flower as its taller parent, and it's much more useful for a small garden.
Smaller. And of course, if any plant has got the word nana or nanum at the end of it, that means it's dwarf, because that's Latin for dwarf.
That's right, yes, yes.
Now, you've got a tremendous diversity of plants here, Peter, and every one of them is scented.
That's right, yes. We supplement the garden by using annuals such as the Kochiana and stocks and things like this that will give us both colour and scent in the summer months, and of course using wallflowers and bulbulous plants during the winter.
Yes.
So that there is always some scent within the garden.
And you rely fairly heavily too, naturally, on scented roses, and there's one here that I find intriguing because it's trained in, to me, quite a novel fashion.
Yes, that's right. This is in fact a Witcheriana hybrid, which we are training in this sort of fan shape at ground level, simply because it gives us the perfume at ground level rather than say quite high. And it is a plant that, of course, you can prune quite severely by removing all the flowering growth after it's finished flowering, and still have some young growth which will come into the fan shape at a later stage for next year's flowering.
So after it's flowered, all those flowering growths that are tied to the canes now are cut right back hard.
That's right, yes.
And the new growths at the top there are trained in their place.
They will be fan trained in, yes.
And they'll give the same effect the following year.
Of course.
And up here, a great flash of colour and some heady perfume.
That's
again.
right, yes. This is the sweet rocket, Hesperus matronalis, which is in fact a biennial and flowers in its second year. And we supplement, as I said, many of these half-hardy and tender plants in the scented garden.
It looks a real typical cottage garden plant. You raise this from seed?
We do raise it from seed, yes. Yes, we sow it about this time of the year, in fact, and grow it on for virtually 12 months before it starts to flower for us.
So for the price of a packet of seeds, you've got real colour, lots of perfume, really cheap and cheerful.
That's right.
Two of the happiest years of my life were spent as a student at this garden, and despite what Jeff said, it wasn't all that many years ago. And one of the things I learned, one of the most important things I learned here at the Cambridge Botanic Garden, was that plants aren't just pretty flowers or handsome foliage. They also have histories, fascinating stories, the places they come from. And this bed, the chronological bed, was a great source of interest to students and visitors alike, because in this bed, a whole selection of plants which have been introduced from foreign parts over several hundred years. And this end of the bed, this is where it all begins. Here is a selection of plants introduced before 1550. It contains a lot of familiar things like the almond, all the branches, of course, before the leaves appear in the spring, studded with pink flowers, one of the most cheerful things in spring. This particular specimen, like many around the country, badly infected with peach leaf curl. And at the foot of the tree, the common rue, Ruta graveolens, a very strong smelling herb. And it was used in Middle Ages in nosegays to keep away flies and even fouler smells. Still found, of course, still popular in kitchen gardens, as much for its blue-grey foliage as for its scent. And in the middle of that bed, the big leaves, pale undersurfaces, that's the elecampane, Inula helenium. And later on in the August time, it'll put up big stately stems, very stiff, with masses of very large yellow daisies, like miniature sunflowers. And again, in the Middle Ages, this was a medicinal plant, and the roots were candied and used as sweetmeats. The children used to love that. The bold yellow plant, well, when the Romans came to Britain, they were faced by wild people, armed to the teeth, and their faces and arms daubed with a blue dye. And the blue dye was taken from the leaves of this plant, the woad, Isatis tinctoria. And it's a very common plant, easy to grow, a biennial, produces masses of dark seeds which hang in clusters from the branches later in the year. Sow these, and being a biennial, 2 years later, you'll have the flowers. Very attractive splash of colour at this time of the year. Now, this is an interesting little patch. Looks like a piece of grass that hasn't been cut. But it is an example of the earliest form and one of the most simple forms of gardening. In the Middle Ages, they used to have their flowery meads, and you'd have the turf of a meadow or a lawn, and they would plant into it a selection of interesting flowers like the columbine and periwinkle, primrose and violet, sweet-smelling flowers as well as those which are just pretty. And this is still practiced in some parts of the country. There's quite a few famous gardens that have their flowering meadows, and you can introduce bulbs into them. And it's not just an excuse for not cutting the lawn. You can have a very, very attractive feature throughout the summertime. We move now to another area, 1550 to 1570, and that 20-year period, another range of plants were coming into this country from abroad. The sweet rocket you've already seen. That was one of the most popular at that time. And then equally popular today, as well as 200-300 years ago, is the honesty, Lunaria annua. Lunaria meaning moon-like, and it refers to those pods. They're green now because they're young. But later on they'll be bleached by the sun and a pale straw colour. Very popular, of course, with flower arrangers who like to preserve the stems when the seeds have ripened. And they're almost penny-like, and you can see the coins, like coins in a purse, in the actual flattened pods. Flowers of purple or white. And then, from 1571 to 1590, another important period for plant introductions, we have Nigella damascena. Love in a mist, I knew it as. One of the first plants I ever grew as a kid. Seeds in a packet, sown into the ground where you want it to grow and then flower later on. And when those flowers appear, those deep blue, intriguing flowers, marvellous to look into. And at the same time, that same period, you had the potato introduced. Not, of course, as a flower, but as a root vegetable. And it was many years before it became popular and it was eaten by the common people. But at that time, it was a novelty from the Andes of South America. Now, this bed goes on and on through the ages, right up to more recent times. And I was very pleased to find the last plant in the bed is one that was introduced by an expedition of which I was a member in 1971 from East Nepal.
Just look at the flowers on this fascinating tree. It's been a good year for it this year because this is a tree that makes its flower buds in the autumn, and if you get a mild winter like we've just had, then you'll get more flower. But if you look closely at the flower, it gives you a clue to its real oddity, because, believe it or not, this tree, Paulownia tomentosa, is actually a member of the foxglove family. And that's got to be the biggest foxglove I've ever seen. But one of the most instructive things for me at Cambridge is the fact that they group together, all together, various specimens from one species. All these plants round here are viburnums, and that gives you a very good opportunity to look at and compare the different plants that you might be buying for your garden. This one is Viburnum opulus sterile, one of the more common plants that you will be able to buy at almost any garden centre. It's called the snowball tree, and of course they couldn't have called it anything else, could they? Now, the word sterile at the end of the name means that it doesn't produce berries. But this one, which is our native Gelder rose, Viburnum opulus, without the sterile at the end, does. Now, the flowers on this are not that striking, but here I think you get the best of both worlds. This is Viburnum sargentii. It has larger flowers and are really very bright, and also in the autumn, this will be covered in red berries, just like red currants hanging down. But all of them, I think, outclassed by these two. This is Viburnum plicatum lanarth, and you can see that the branches come in great tiers or layers, and it's covered at this time of the year with white bloom, and this gives it the common name, the wedding cake plant. This one here is Viburnum marizii. It is so much the same as lanarth that I think it would take a botanist to sort it out, really. So whichever of these two that you see in the garden centre, then you're onto a good bet, I think. They'll grow quite a bit wider than they are at the moment, so they do need a fair bit of room, but they'll only grow to about 6 feet high. Now here is a fascinating wheeze, I think. If you look around here, you'll see very few weeds in the bed, and that's because the whole bed has been mulched with pulverized bark. This is about 2 inches deep, and not only does it suppress the weeds, but it retains the moisture underneath here. They haven't hoed it all the year, and there's still lots of moisture there underneath.
No doubt about it, Peter. As a young recruit to the Botanic Gardens, a new student in the early 60s, this rock garden, to me, was the most impressive feature in the garden, but I only regret that it was completed before I arrived.
Yes, Roy, it is unique in as much that it's planted geographically, and we have the European section here, and there are a number of very interesting plants, including this little annual.
The Erinus alpinus.
That's right, yes, and it really does seed itself quite nicely through these cracks and crevices.
Yeah. It's an annual plant, isn't it? I know there's a man I knew in the north who used to have handfuls of seed and scatter them over dry stone walls, and at least 50% would germinate, and you get a whole range of colours, from the lilac and white to pink. But what's the one over the rock?
That's gypsophyllus from the Alps.
I like the way it sort of moulds itself to the rock formations.
Yes, it's carpeted itself very well over there.
So all this is Europe.
This is Europe,
around us.
And behind us is the American section. To the
on that high ground.
The far rise is the American section. The little stream here divides the European section with the Asiatic section through here.
This is Asia. I can see Oriental poppy for a start.
Yes, yes.
God, what a colourful patch we have there.
It's a very nice patch, isn't it? Yes, it starts with the Aethyonema grandiflora, which is a very nice plant, but there is a cultivated form, Whaley Rose, I think.
That's that big, that's a very pink,
the pink one there, yes.
Drift.
That's right.
Is that in the crucifer family?
Yes, that's right, yes, it is. In the cabbage family.
It looks like a cabbage.
A bit like one, does it? No.
What about the white one?
The white one is Astragalus ambiguus, and that, funnily enough, is in the legume family, the Leguminosae, which again is the garden peas and beans family.
Sure, and very spiny joker too, I remember those.
Indeed, yes.
That's from Syria, which is in the news at the moment.
Yes,
for different reasons.
Yes.
And the yellow one?
The little yellow one is an alpine version of the John's wort, and this is Hypericum rhodopeum, literally coming from South Europe into Turkey. So it's just
that's a connecting link, in other words. Yes.
In other words.
What about real Asia as we know it?
Well,
like
real Asia, the plant here is from China, and I'm sure you know this one very well.
An old friend from Yunnan. We saw it 2 years ago in the wild. Encavillia marii. I like the big trumpets.
Yes, that's the grandiflora.
That's the grandiflora variety. Easy to grow here, Peter?
Reasonably easy, yes. They don't like being disturbed, of course, and once they're settled in, they'll flower each year quite readily. Yeah.
I've got a riddle for you. When is a geranium not a geranium? Well, confusion reigns, so let's try and sort it out. This is the half-hardy perennial that you'll probably be planting now, that everybody knows as the bedding geranium. Well, this is an imposter. In fact, this is pelargonium. It was classified wrongly as geranium all in about the 18th century, I think. But by the time it was changed, it was too late. The name had stuck, and I suppose it'll stick with us forever. But the real geranium is this little beauty here. These are the crane's bills, and they're really geraniums. This one is a geranium cinereum, and it's a naturally occurring variety called subcaulescens. It's a beautiful plant for the rock garden or for the front of the border, sometimes sold in nurseries or garden centres as geranium subcaulescens. So if you see it as that, then you've got the right one. Another geranium cinereum is this one here, quite different, but look at the little striations in the petals there, the little stripes. Makes it a really delicate, beautiful little plant. Another one here, much the same sort of thing, only slightly darker. This is geranium argentium. And that's a little beauty, isn't it? Ideal for the rock garden, for the front of the border, but you know, it's a very big group of plants, geranium. There are about 400 different species in it. So there are geraniums for the front of the border, geraniums for the back of the border, geraniums for ground cover, for sun and for shade. Peter, this one catches my eye. It's very delicate and pretty, isn't it? What is that?
Yes, geranium asphodaloides. It's a species geranium which is found in the wild, and it grows particularly well with us, and is very attractive when it's in flower.
It is a beautiful one, isn't it? The bees seem to love it
yes,
too.
Yes, they do indeed.
But with a name like asphodaloides, it's got to be pretty, isn't it?
It has, yes, it has.
Now, round here is an old friend that I recognise. This one surely is our native meadow crane.
Yes, very similar to that, to ours, yes, but this is Kashmir purple, and is in fact found wild growing in Kashmir. But a very attractive plant.
And would that do as a ground cover plant, do you think?
It would, yes, certainly as a ground cover plant it would grow very well.
In shade and sun?
Shade or in semi-shade or sun, yes.
Oh, well, that's quite a useful plant to know then, isn't it? What would you do with that once the flowers of the first flush of flowers has gone?
Well, when they finished, of course, we would cut it down, and that would then send up a secondary flush of leaves, and in the late summer, another batch of flowers.
So you get two cracks of the whip.
So you do indeed get two cracks of the whip.
Here's one that you can't overlook. Now, this one really is a sort of a garden cultivated one, isn't it?
Yes, yes. This is Geranium cinereum ballerina, and is a very attractive hybrid, and ought to be grown far more than it is, of course.
Yes, they are superb, aren't they? Lots more different, newer varieties coming along.
There are, yes.
Really deserve a place in any garden.
They do, yes. They are a very good and very interesting group of plants.
One of the last trees to come into leaf in the late spring or early summer is the black locust, or false acacia, Robinia pseudacacia. It's a native of the eastern states of America, and was introduced into this country some 200–300 years ago. It's a very adaptable tree, very fast growing. Its branches can be brittle, and it does suffer from wind blow, but it has many other characteristics which recommend it, including white pea flowers, which are richly honey scented. And in the same family is the Cercis siliquastrum, sometimes called the Judas tree. And it's one of the few hardy trees in which the flowers can actually emerge from the bark of the main branches and the trunk. Superb pea-like flowers, great showers and clusters. It's a native of Mediterranean area, and it was, or said to be, the tree from which Judas Iscariot hanged himself. Now, a third of the trio of famous trees in this particular corner of the Cambridge Botanic Gardens is Parotia persica, the Persian ironwood. And I've seen this in the forests of the Caspian Sea in northern Iran. And in the autumn, this is known for its brilliant autumn colours. But there is another feature which is very often hidden from view unless you're prepared to plunge through the canopy. And this is the secret of the Parotia, this beautiful piebald bark. All the old bark flakes away to reveal the new bark underneath. And what I like also are the branches up above, writhing like serpents and fusing in parts, joining together, forming a complex pattern. This is one of the oldest trees in the Cambridge Botanic Garden, and judging by the health of it, I expect this to go on for at least another 100 years.
Peter, you're gardening here on a very chalky soil, and yet I notice you've got acid-loving plants around here. How do you do it?
Well, this is a small sandstone rock garden, of course, where we can alter the character of the soil by putting a peaty soil in, and we do this in pockets to build up the acidity so that we can grow the plants of the ericaceous family to widen our choice of plants.
So you're using sandstone. Is that an acid rock?
That's an acid rock, yes.
Because it's raised, the surrounding water doesn't seep into it?
It doesn't seep into it at all.
OK, well, that's fine. But I've also noticed that you've got here and there rhododendrons, which are growing in a border which is quite flat.
Yes, yes. We use flowers of sulphur, which is something that we use only as a last resort, of course, to lower the pH value of the soil. Alkaline soils are 7.5, and we need to reduce the pH to around about 6. So we add flowers of sulphur at 2 to 3 ounces to the square yard, like that, during the winter period before planting, and then we would of course fork it in so that the top 6 inches of soil becomes relatively acid.
And you do this because you've got to grow acid-loving plants for teaching purposes, would you recommend it?
Not really for the average person.
Well,
it's not a practice that one would really recommend.
Peter, thank you for showing us around your garden. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Next week, we're in a beautiful garden in Yorkshire where we're looking at, among other things, an interesting weed control experiment. So, see you next week.
And that programme from Newby Hall in Yorkshire next week is again at 8:35. On BBC One now, the 9 o'clock news and election roundup will be followed by Cagney and Lacey. They'll be trying to round up a man involved in a hit-and-run accident, which could lead to an international